The people, the criminals who have money, likely are the white collar criminals.
Yes, sir.
Those don't get prosecuted. They don't. They don't get prosecuted. You know who gets prosecuted for corruption in this country?
Yes.
The police officer yojele 50 pula was pitrepe.
Cool drink.
Yeah. So how about the corruption statistics? What will we get my $50?
Yeah.
But now we tell them system in yogo. Machaina, Makula, Makua, top dogs monetung. Hey, who you about 300 million? Who you about 500 million? Who you about, billions? So the criminal justice system as it is tailored simply to deal with the poor people.
Yeah.
No one else.
Yes, sir.
Tell me a drug dealer. Those who have the money now, you prosecute. Drugs are everywhere, so there are drug dealers locally.
Yeah.
You prosecute. You know who's getting prosecuted right now?
Malaitinyana
The victims are the drug dealers are the ones who are suffering prosecution. The end users, by this drug baggers, and got hooked into drugs.
Yes, sir.
And we pretend that we are dealing with the drug situation. Yes, because who you know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
And I'm simply 17 or 18 years of age. I'm a victim of some drug lord sitting somewhere in that glorious castle, enjoying drug money. And people will tell you, they will never get arrested. They'll never get investigated. Now. They will turn my whole house upside down. And I'm going to spend at least 2 days.
So to the imbalance in our justice system, or if you have the money, then you usually are bound to be free.
People of different identities. Podcast with BSCAR.
Yo, what's poppin', everybody? Welcome to another edition of the PODI-CAST, the very first one of 2025. I'm your host, SCAR, and my goodness, it's great to be back. Come on, guys, it's great to be back. Come on now. Like 2024, we really just wanted to get into the holiday, but we're happy you guys are back with us, and we have another season of PODI-CAST lined up for you that's should be thought-provoking, should be able to get conversation going, because that's really what we want to do right over here. It's exclusive to the Local Corner Multimedia YouTube page. This is where you're at. This is where you should like and subscribe so that you can get all of the lowdown of all of the content that they have for you. There's also extra content from over the holiday season. I think there's a performance from Born and Raised, so you should be able to check that out. But right now, our first guest of the year, guys, we've been wanting to get this gentleman for a very long time, because when you meet him personally, he is such an amazing guy and just cool and whatever. But online, he has another demeanor where he's really, really serious. And so you're always wondering, but like, when we hit him up, he said, without a doubt, give me the time and place and I'll be there. And I can't introduce him enough. Everybody knows who he is. He left us on social media, so he's going to have to tell that to us as well. Ladies and gentlemen, criminal lawyer and all-around badass, Mr. Kgosi Ngakaagae is in the house. Hello, sir. How are you,
Sure. Hey, I'm fine, my man. How are you?
I'm great, man.
Yeah.
Guys, don't let this look fool you. These are Prada glasses, okay? So how was your holiday? What did you get up to?
Hey, this time around, I decided to do less traveling.
Yeah.
I just decided to take care of the wife and kids, spend time with them.
Yes, sir.
We hardly ever go on leave, like the whole day. Aga January
Yeah.
until December. So it's only in December that you get maybe a week or two,
Yes, sir.
and you try to give to the family what you deny them, throughout the year. And
Definitely.
that was really the idea, and that's exactly what happened.
Definitely. No, it's always nice to get some rest. I was telling some of the homies here, I born and raised. Never already camera ba shoota gona kwana. Nna ke iphitlhile ka tlase ga letapa, because I think with experience you get to realize like there's not a lot of free time, so you do the best with what you got.
True that.
So I can really understand. Thank you so much for coming through. I mean, you are a complex individual online on the newspapers, because you barely ever smile. Is that on purpose? Like on the real, like every picture, especially because I guess we're almost funny. Was that on purpose? Like, is there Kgosi Ngakaagae when he's doing his job, and then there's a personal one?
That's correct. I wear several hats. There's this hat that I wear when I'm doing my job. I try to be as focused as a laser beam.
Yes.
And then there's time to get social.
Yeah.
And to have a good time with the guys, to have a good time with friends, to have a good time with people around me.
Yeah.
And I could just as well be the loudest of
Yeah.
the whole pack.
Hey.
Yeah.
No, that's always nice. Never mix all of them together, leave some room for mystery. I want to go back to your childhood, though, because I think a lot of us never get to see that. We only see the cases that you're working on. Where did you grow up, and where did you go to school and stuff like that?
Yeah, I'm a thoroughbred Mahalapian.
Yes, sir.
Born and raised Mahalape.
Yes, sir.
That's where I grew up. My father's from Serowe,
Okay.
but he settled in Mahalape in the mid to late 60s because he had found a job there.
Okay.
So I was born there, I was raised there.
Okay.
My mother is from Tonota. So those are the two places that kind of defined my childhood, my maternal relatives and the paternal side. Most of my paternal relatives are still in Serowe, and my maternal relatives are in Tonota. I started my schooling at Mahalape Primary.
Okay.
Standard 1 to Standard 4. I was at Mahalape Primary, then I transferred to Damocha Primary. That's where the president did his primary. So
I was waiting for the name.
so I am I'm from gore ke tswa go Tentuna tse neng teng. So kanye we botlhokwa.
Yes, sir.
So Standard 5 to Standard 7. Damocha Primary School, then I did my Form 1 and Form 2 at Moana Community, and then Senior Secondary School, Madiba Senior.
Okay.
Yeah.
Whoa. Because how do you get to Stellenbosch? Because like, for the average Botswana, because that's really, you went through those paces pretty much. Average Botswana paces. All of us see ourselves in Bo UB, maybe Bo Limkongwin. How do we get to Stellenbosch?
I think I was, you have to say, some of it is probably by divine providence, because I went to university pretty much in the same way that everyone went there. Just typical government bursary, loan grant, that arrangement that government had.
Yes.
For graduating students. So I chose to do law. So I went through my LLB studies. And after the 5-year law program, I joined immediately the Attorney General's Chambers as State Counsel.
Okay.
And I was put specifically at the Prosecutions Division. That's probably why people say I am the criminal lawyer, because really, they're not wrong.
Yeah.
That's where I cut my teeth. That's where I cut my teeth. I started working for the DPP in the year 2000. That is immediately after graduation. And I worked for them for 10 years. And between that period, 2000 and 2010, to be sure, in 2006, government sent me to Stellenbosch.
Okay.
So it wasn't really so much on account of my efforts personally. I perhaps just happened to be at the right place, the right time, and hopefully doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's how I got to Stellenbosch.
I love the humility. Because I'm sure they weren't just taking everyone to Stellenbosch. There had to be a defining factor. But for that question, though, about the criminal law aspect, a lot of people like to think, people choose that route. You know, are you trying to tell me that it chose you by virtue of the fact that you went into the prosecution's office?
Yeah, it was in fact the Attorney General. The Attorney General could have put me anyway.
Yeah.
You know, I could have been in the Civil Litigation Division.
Yeah.
I could have been in the Commercial Division. I could have been in the Drafting Division, just as much as I could have been in the Prosecutions Division.
Yeah.
But I suppose that at the time, the needs of the organization were more pronounced in the Prosecution Division.
Yeah.
And that's where I was immediately deployed. Yeah.
All right. So with your name, criminal law, so that's where when you went to Stellenbosch, or was this like a general situation? Because I always wonder, when you specialize in law, you know, is it like this is going to be the rest of my life? I'm going to be doing this type of law for the rest of my life, or is it like an all-encompassing, I don't know, for lack of a better word, module?
Yeah. You know, with the law is such a multifaceted program.
Yeah.
There are so many things that you do in the process. You got contract, you got delict, you got property, you got succession, you got just about anything and everything. All aspects of the law, you can pick a specialty within all those particular aspects. But there's also this thing that says you want to remain a wholesome lawyer. In as much as you may specialize in one thing, you don't want to lose touch with all the other areas of the law that make up your qualification.
Yeah.
So you still find yourself going to commercial cases here and there, property cases, succession cases. The core of your work may be one thing, but you never really want to lose, touch with the rest of the law as a subject. So that is precisely what I'm doing. 40% of my work is not criminal. It's everything else.
Okay.
It's civil, it's divorce, it's just about anything you can think of that the law entails.
Awesome.
And the other part, would be criminal.
I feel that no one wants to be a one-trick pony.
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't be making rap money right now. But we read the podcast if you're going to be an entertainer. Were there any particular mentors at the time? I mean, when you're growing up in Mahalape, who are you looking up to? Who does the sort of thing that you eventually want to become?
Look, I'm going to be very honest with you.
Yeah.
When I was doing Standard 6, Standard 7, our role models were the guys who danced Pantsula the best. So growing up, I wanted to be one of the best dancers of Pantsula. Primary.
Yes,
because these guys were the celebrated guys, if you ask me.
Yes, sir.
These are the famous guys. These were the guys that everyone was talking about.
Yes, sir.
These were the guys who were really admired. And I had some rather strict parents who had their own ideas about how I was going to get raised. So they ensured that I do not go in that specific direction.
Yes, sir.
But my early childhood was modeled more by my parents than anyone else. And they were not educated. They were not university educated. They were just a typical Tswana family.
Yes, sir.
But they had the maturity of mind to know precisely what they wanted about their children, and they were quite uncompromising in achieving it. So they were the ones that would say, you know what, you are not going to get engaged in this, you are not going to get engaged in this, you are sticking to school and only school. Yeah. So to answer your question directly with reference to role models, I only got to encounter some names or inspirational figures much later, probably at senior secondary school, you know. The more prominent guys in the village, you know, upcoming, even young. You know, he's from, because he was practicing in Mahalape at the time. Hey, he's a badass lawyer, he's this, he's this. And there's another one who was you know, that's when you get to hear of those names and you kind of look at yourself and wish one day you could get to that place where you break out of the ordinary and make something with your life.
Yes, sir.
So there have been those subtle influences in early childhood. But to say that in Mahalape there were role models, quite honestly, I grew up in a typical Mahalape street where there was a shebeen every 4 or 5 yards from where I was staying. Mafia. So the streets modeled your role.
Yeah.
Role modeled for you.
Yeah.
And the only thing that ever stood between you and what the streets were pulling you to,
For sure.
Quite honestly, nothing else.
So now that you are a parent, I mean, in the social media and, you know, they listen to what they listen to. They get influenced by what they get influenced by. How do you strike that balance? Because I'm sure it must be difficult having to do the same parenting that you saw that got you to be what you are and trying to do that here. I mean, just fast forwarding a little bit, how are you able to how are you handling parenting? What's up with strict situation in Algarve? Hey, my dad is from a strict situation, you can tell. This way, hella. So I don't see that happening these days. How are you able to flex that situation?
You know, I think somewhere in life, there are a whole lot of things you learn that question a whole lot of other things you have learned before.
Yeah.
You know, growing up with regards to parenting, for example, my parents tried their part. But I still wished for and envied other kids. By the rules were less stringent. On here and there. Here and there. So if we could break out maybe and you know and make remarks at ladies and all that kind of stuff. If we had that half chance, we would do that and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But the circumstances, and this why the streets calling, quite honestly. Yeah. And that is why often, even now, I have a lot of sympathy towards the boy child because those were subtle influences, you know, that came. I didn't invite them. I was a little boy.
You were in the street, yeah.
I was in the street. By the time I knew how to choose, the streets had already made some choices for me.
Yeah.
And somewhere later in life, you have to disentangle yourself from those choices.
Yeah.
It may come quite fast, maybe through experience, but it often just requires the maturity to question something. So coming to how I handle parenting, I look at it more through what I would want the world to look like for my children.
Yeah.
And how I would want them to define the world if I had an opportunity to influence them too.
Yeah.
For example, the GBV that I saw in the streets back home, I have 3 girls.
Yeah.
I want a world that's fair to them.
Yeah.
I don't want a world where they're going to get beaten because they're women.
Yeah.
So I have to make sure that I fashion the world in a manner you know. So my approach is quite simple. Model through your own life the kind of principles you want. Live those principles. And this is not even to say that a parent or I, for example, could be any perfect than the next parent, far from it.
Yeah.
It is simply to say, you got to give it your best.
Yeah.
Make sure your kids are fed. Make sure that they believe in you. Because when they believe in you, they will learn the principles you teach them.
Yeah.
When they don't believe in you,
Yeah.
you could be talking, they're not listening.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
they're not listening. So practically, that's my approach to parenting. How do I want the world to look like for my kids, especially my girl kids? Because boys are comparatively advantaged. I'm not saying that they are always advantaged, but they are comparatively advantaged compared to the girl. So my emphasis is on the girl child.
Awesome stuff. That's actually a really dope perspective, how you want the world to be, feed that into your little ones and hopefully hope for the best, I want to get into you now as the badass lawyer that you are. There's a conversation about the right to legal representation, you being the cornerstone to justice. It's usually misunderstood. You've represented some people, bilingual people in the public domain that really castigate. He did it. I just want you to explain to the average Botswana, the right to legal representation, and even you have the right to legal representation. I don't know how you would explain that to Batswana.
Yeah. This is the way I look at it, quite honestly. I start firstly at the humane point. All of us are susceptible to error.
Yeah.
It's only that some people's errors are greater than those of others. But all of us are susceptible to error. Any one of us can be in prison tonight, literally, like all of us sitting here right now. All of us here could be in prison tonight, or one of us could be. Not because they left this place thinking, I'm going to commit a crime or anything. God forbid, you drive out of here, a child crosses the street, something bad happens, and the next thing you are in police custody being. So the right to legal representation simply means that any person accused or every person accused is treated humanely by the system. It simply means that an accusation that is made about you should not be a reason for dehumanizing you.
Yeah.
It does not mean you should not suffer the punishment or be accountable. There's a court system waiting for you with all its rigors. Look at the right to legal representation this way. If you are accused of a crime, you know how many lawyers you are potentially facing from the government side? The DPP has more than 100 lawyers just waiting to be unleashed onto you. You, as an accused person, you can only afford one. The DPP has more than 100 cars to be deployed specifically on you anytime. The DCC doesn't run out of petrol. The DCC doesn't run out of stationery. So the game between accused persons and the state is a game of unequals.
Yeah.
Complete unequals. So when the state is standing on one side, with all its might, with its resources, with its time, with all the taxes, and they are being deployed against you, how can anyone complain when you ask that one person, just one person in society, who is ill-resourced because you can't pay them well, who has to minimize on stationery and fuel, should be on your side? How can anyone complain when the game in terms of human resource capacities is fixed 100 to 1? So I always say, when people ask about legal representation, they must bear into account the systemic imbalances that I speak of.
Yes, sir.
They are real. You've mentioned one thing, that I've represented some people that people had literally ruled out.
Yeah.
You're altogether right. Yeah. And I'll tell you why I do that. I represent them for the specific reason that no one wants to hear them.
Yeah.
And I represent them specifically because no one can hear them. What they are alleged to have done shouts so loud that even if they were to stand before the public and say, please hear me out, the public won't listen.
Yeah.
So because their voice cannot fly before the public, and because they are outnumbered in the manner that I described, they need to hire a voice that the public might just listen to, because theirs can't fly.
Yes, sir.
You can't listen to someone who's doing no, thank you. He has to hire a voice that is credible. But we are okay. Otherwise, hang this thing.
I want to find out about that from you, from your perspective. Or do you usually, avail yourself, or do they specifically come to you as clients because they know about what you've been able to do in the past? How do you choose the people that you do represent, especially when we come to criminal cases? Before we get into any other cases,
that's an interesting question, because 90 to 95% of the time, it's not the wrongdoer who employs me or who employs the lawyer. It's the family. Families are as much victims of the criminal's doing as the rest of society. They go to bed, they are in turmoil the next morning because ngwana bona to bolaile motho kana o committile crime. And I say all the time that it's always easy for people to say, and people have said this to me, what if ana bolaile ngwana gago? They ask that question all the time. I don't judge them. I don't even blame them for asking that. It's a legitimate question because their emotions are hurt. But it's only half the real question. The other half, what if ngwana gago
are committing
the offense? Would you not sell your house to pay me in order that he should not be hanged? You would. You'd sell your house any day. It doesn't matter whether you support the death penalty or the moment and our children, all of us, can fall into that era. We have no control over their emotions. You just wake up one day and they have put you in this extremely serious situation. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
And at the end of it all, when that happens, trust me, all these things about I support the death penalty, they just go out through the window. So often our decisions are shaped around legal representation, are shaped by the anger we feel upon being hurt by what someone has done, as opposed to the full picture, our individual or personal realities. So 95% of the time, 90 to 95% to be sure, I'm paid by the families. Is that lone mother, for example, who grew up with this boy because the father had nothing to do with him, or maybe she's a widow or whatever, who comes because suddenly the world is saying, stone the boy. Do I shut the door on her face? I can't. I can't. The least I can do is, look, I'll go to court and I'll make sure your child is treated fairly and justly by the system. What the court is going to decide is another thing altogether. It's beyond me to do that. I can influence it, possibly. I might fail, but at the end of it all, the little I can do for you is to make sure that the system doesn't just roll over him like that. So that is really what the whole philosophy behind my practice is. There is more about every human being than there are worst actions. You cannot write off a human being purely on the basis of one thing that they have done wrong. I've lived 40 years or 50 years of my life. I've served society well. I've done everything right. Someday I make a mistake, bad or very bad, whatever. And then that mistake washes away all the 40 or 50 years that I have lived. And it is the one mistake on the basis of which this society that I have served so dutifully all this time judges me.
Yeah.
And our job is to say, it shouldn't work like that.
Yeah.
Let's take the person as a whole. There are things that speak for him in as much as there are things that speak against him.
Yeah.
When we judge him, let's put them all in the melting pot and take a decision that humanizes the individual as opposed to one that condemns and discards them just because we are angry with them.
Yes, sir. I hear that completely. I'm sure they hear it too. But really Batswana, Rona self for hell. When it comes to your legal representation and ensuring fairness in the justice system, do we grasp that concept? Can I, from your point of view, because you're the one who probably gets the brunt of, all of the anger usually because of, your line of work. But do you think, no, we don't have to, or our discomfort more? Right, create idea, right?
No, we don't.
I had
We
faith.
don't. No, we don't. You know why?
Yeah.
And honestly, I understand because firstly, society misinterprets our rules.
Yeah.
When I get involved, what society believes is I am involved in order to protect the criminal.
Yeah.
So, because you protect the criminal, I'm on the wrong side of things.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and so I've received a lot of abuse, especially on, I could wake up one day and I get a post purely on me. We hope the criminals kill your daughter. No, literally, somebody just said that. We hope the criminals kill your daughter so that you feel how the rest of us are feeling.
Yeah.
More way to just be a direct insult to me. More way to hang him and all that. So I get that all the time. Even in a topic I'm not involved in. I would wake up one morning and what I get is maybe that I have absolutely nothing to do with in terms of my work or my job. So you get that kind of abuse. But I'll tell you something. It's just part of the job. It's an occupational risk.
Yes, sir.
You're dealing with a public that is not necessarily schooled in the way of the law.
Yes.
Cut it some slack. Don't be too angry with them when they respond. Others are going to be extremely angry. They'll say nasty things. It doesn't make them right.
Yeah.
You hope and wish that they could see the light, but you have to accept that, you know what, you are dealing with the public. Engwe is just spiteful, Engwe is just vileful, Engwe is just vengeful. They're just taking advantage and all that. So you deal with all kinds of characters. And if you allow all those things to weigh you down, you won't be able to do your job.
Is that why you are off social media? Can I think it's been 2 years? Oh, God.
Okay.
That one had to come because I think a lot of people miss your commentary on a whole lot of issues. And, you can also tell us the reasoning behind you stepping back as well,
Yeah. I didn't step back voluntarily.
What happened?
Quite honestly.
Hey.
Someone very, very close to me sent me a link on my, what do you call it? On my messenger.
Hey.
Sent me a link. And I opened this link because it was coming to someone, from someone.
Meeting.
No, yoki meeting, ibilele an expert wa IT.
Hey. Oh, Lord, no.
And when I say an expert wa IT, you are an expert wa IT at managerial level.
Hey.
Someone like close.
Yeah.
Sends me a link. And when they send me a link, I open the link because it comes from a source that's close to me.
Yes, sir.
My account got compromised.
Oh, no.
My credentials get stolen. And I'm running this battle suddenly with this, I don't know if to call them hackers or cyber thugs, whatever you may call them. And I realized this battle of getting my account back is taking too long. In the meantime, these people have been able to access my account. They control it. And they are using my following and the content in it to defraud people. So in the interest of my followers, I had to report to Facebook to say, take it down, to protect those who are following me. At the time, I had built quite a following, well over 100,000.
Yes, sir. I remember very well.
But the potential damage that my followers were likely to suffer whilst I tried to fight for their account was so big that I knew I had to let the account go in their interest.
Definitely.
So I got Facebook to take it down completely. I got Facebook to take it down. And then after that happened, I said to myself, what do I do now? Do I open another account? Do I open a page? And I said, you know what? Maybe it's time to just sit back and reflect over my social media life and take, and decide whether how I have been going this entire time because I was so active on social media is right. That was August the year before last. That was August the year before last. August the 4th, if I'm not mistaken. And so I decided to take a sabbatical off social media just to reflect. So there is a good chance I'll be back, maybe in a month or two.
Awesome stuff.
So
you
I
heard it
had
here
practically taken a sabbatical.
I need one. There's someone here who knows that I definitely need a sabbatical. But about Facebook, I want to get back to your line of work, and I just want to confirm your position on the death penalty before I ask the next question, because it's become a topic. We have human rights activists as the president, and the conversation is rearing its head yet again in BW. What is your position when it comes to the death penalty?
I'm going to give it to you the way it happened so that you really understand what happened. When I was working for government, so from the time when I started understanding that question of the death penalty, I was pro-death penalty. I was pro-death penalty to the extent that I was doing so many murder cases. I had people sentenced to death. In my prosecution's life, in my prosecution's life. And not only that, I was the point man for the Attorney General's chambers in all death penalty debates. Panel discussion or wherever, just to defend the death penalty. In the meantime, I'm working with the death penalty. Remember, I'm in the courts. And I'll tell you the truth. The one person whose subtle influence on this question really did get to me is the now president. Because for the most part, this is the guy I found myself fighting on the death penalty question. Because he was an abolitionist, whether in the panel discussions or wherever. So we did a lot of panel discussions together on the death penalty and all that, me supporting it on behalf of government. But after all the debates and everything, when you stand on the sidelines and you have that man-to-man talk, and now you recede to your private space, and the reasoning, those are times where you face the pitiless logic of facts. You can't run away from yourself when you are alone. There are truths you can't run away from, especially when you are alone. How happy you can vacillate, you can posture, and that conscience starts nagging and say, make the other person is right. You begin to listen to yourself. And this is what happened with me. As I was using this death penalty, or asking for it, prosecuting for it, along the way. Ke simolla go lemoga dio dingwe ga di a siama ka institution e. One is not capable of class neutral application. Whether or not you get it depends on what kind of lawyer you are getting. That is number one. If you have the money for a good lawyer, you have a 95 or 90% chance of escaping it, even if you may go to prison. If you don't have the money, you're probably at 50% chance of getting it before you even begin. Because what's going to happen is the registrar of the High Court is just going to pick a name out of a hat, possibly a fresher from law school who has absolutely no experience, having done murder cases, and assign that person to you as a PODI or lawyer. I've sat in one case where a guy was sentenced to death, and I saw the the defense lawyer, I was still prosecuting, make mistakes that literally walked his client to death row. And I realized this can't be right. It's not capable of class neutral application. That's number one. So the poor get hanged, the rich,
they survive it.
They survive. That's number one. Number two, the bench is divided, the High Court bench. There are conscientious objectors, those who don't want the death penalty, and there are those who believe in it. So whether you get it depends more on when one guy does something more serious, who doesn't support the death penalty. Ngakaagae, as a judge, is going to find every reason not to impose it. Simply because a judge who's enthusiastic about the death penalty, less than what I have done, ends up getting it. That's
not fair.
That's number two. So you have systemic problems that come with the death penalty. The are simply questions that are evidence and capacity. How do you launch a formidable defense? I remember the registrar Ngasa in one PODI, I was supposed to assist some guy, I think in a Tane prison. And the registrar says to me, yeah, there's your file. I'm supposed to go to Tane prison. And the registrar says, for your expenses, it's 1,000 a day.
So pro dio and pro bono, the difference ki...
Pro bono is civil criminal.
Okay.
Yeah, pro dio is criminal.
Criminal.
So the registrar says, your compensation is 1,000 per day. Keleko, I have to go to Tane for 1,000 a day.
That's petrol.
That's the resource imbalance can lead to a person who did not deserve to be hanged, being hanged because their lawyer didn't have enough with which to protect them. Look how Oscar Pistorius was able to launch a defense. It was all about money, my brother.
Very nice.
It was all about money. Another guy, having done what he did, would have rot in jail. Liana, life. It was all about money. They got the psychologists, they got the armament expert. What has they disitaka armament technician, kana sitaka motwadi ballistics. Kana sitaka defense in alema dilo neta armament technician on. Has they disitaka pathologist, defense taka pathologist. You know, it was a game pretty much of equal because the resources. So we have this extremely imperfect system, which we are trusting with killing people. So how do you exclude errors when you have such a system? And if we agree there could be errors. Don't we stop first and fix the errors before you continue? How would you go in Alamata? How we may pillow way back and before Jelel? Our guy back and
No way.
You can't.
No way.
If you accept that there are errors and there could be errors and the system is imperfect, we have to sit down and say, okay, if we believe in the system, are fixing all these imperfections, they have been fixed. Then not to say I support.
Yes.
But as it is, many people agree the system is imperfect. But ironically, they still say hang them through an imperfect system. How do you impose an irreversible punishment through an imperfect system?
That's the question for you guys. Because, all right, I came into this interview, believer as like any other Botswana, that the reason that, our crime rates may be lower than, let's say, South Africa, is because of the hindrance that comes with the death penalty. People don't kill people because clearly they don't want to die. So I don't know if that is, what do you think about that argument?
It's not an argument at all.
Well, that comment.
Honestly, it's not, it's not an argument at all. I always say, how many people have we hanged since 1966? Like our constitutional order, maybe 60. We are around 60 now. From 1966. You should be saying, as a people, that in terms of crime statistics, this is what we have to show for the 60 people we have hanged. As we did in 1994, we hanged 4 people same morning. I think it was 94, if not 96. I was there. I found those people at death row. We made a visit there. Some 4 guys, Bo, Haola, Tekwae, and some other 3 guys, they were hanged the same morning. I think it was in August, 1994, 96, thereabout. It's on to us now, Kalitsa. In the next few months, everybody made a delay. Because but was something about Susi go holding. How about Nahuel Lahela? The problem with us, Batswana, we don't want to argue, not rationally, but truthfully. This world has been one long slaughterhouse from its very beginning. And the killings go on and on and on. To get here, I'm talking about the world over.
Yes, sir.
For the murder, they could be burnt at the stake. Now, behead you. Publicly, did the murder stop? No. We're still where we are. And we think the murders can stop when public forms of execution have failed to kill murders. It doesn't work. People like it, and I say all the time, and this is really true, well, at least according to me. One death penalty, indirectly, I'll tell you why. It's an extreme statement to make. I'll tell you why. It makes society believe it's doing something about murders, when it's in fact doing nothing. It distracts from society Remember that the death penalty is reactive. So it doesn't really help anything. The person is dead. So it's pure raw vengeance, emotion, without fixing any problem, because this person is dead. What society should obsess with is not with hanging people, but with preventing killings in the first place. Now, we think that the death penalty, and this is what we preach to society, will help prevent killings. And it doesn't. And we don't want to look at the truth in the mirror. And for that, we keep people thinking death penalty will save us. In the meantime, people get killed. And it's a distraction from thinking. Real solutions. Because this false solution.
So we are here now, we have an abolitionist for a president. Now I'm hoping this means we have political will is it something that you think the president, I mean, personally, do you think that's something that the president can do, to switch this around? And do you think that he has like the political will and support from, people in your fraternity as well, especially because, that's his line of work? Do you think this could be the time when Botswana tracks back on this law?
I don't see Botswana making that change anytime soon. And I'll tell you why. The reason is the death penalty is not just a legal issue. It's also a political issue.
Yeah.
Gompieno yana, utlwa batho ba re, ha boko a ka re wa abolisha death penalty, re montsha mo pusong. I've seen some comments like that in the groups.
Yes, sir.
Ho tla ba batla go tswa mo. So the president may fail to take that step because, I'm not saying he will, but he may fail to take that step because it has political consequences.
Yeah.
When le politiki le ema kwa le re nara re batho bao ba bolawe to an angry public, what reaction are you expecting from the public? You are the man, you are the man. So ba politiki ba ja di topo ka death penalty.
Yeah.
They use it as a campaign tool.
Yeah.
And that is where Tautuna is going to lack the political will to make any change. Yes. And we understand that. We understand that. The president can't make laws alone. Because all these MPs, so their decision on the death penalty is not based on arguments against the death penalty are wrong. It's based on top. So that is really where the problem is at the end of the day. And all we are hoping for at the very least is the president can initiate dialogue. It educate the public about the full facts so that when the public is at we want to stick with this. Public itse do tsentseng di bolella gompieno yana ka botlalo.
No, this is, and let's one that are news to me. Like I'm just on some, you can't be killing people. Do this system. It just doesn't make any sense right now. I'm going to quickly move on to something that's been news in December. The statistics that came out as far as gender-based violence is concerned. 60 women raped, 19 murdered, and 13 defiled. I don't have a question for this, really. I just want to throw out these statistics and what do they mean to you, and also how do you think as a country we're handling this issue, gender-based violence?
When you talk about issues about rape, murder, and all that, they are close to my heart for the singular reason that these are issues that affect everyone.
Yes, sir.
I can't support murder, I can't support rape, because I have girl children.
Yes, sir.
God forbid, who could be victims of the same thing.
Yes, sir.
I can't support murder because I've got children, I've got people around me who could be victims of. So when people are like, okay, you know what, no, it's not even about that, because all of us are really victims. I mean, if you talk about...
And this is why I really wanted to bring these issues up, because I think sometimes the narratives about social media will make someone look a certain way, but you're a human being too.
Look, I could leave this place now and get killed.
Yeah.
So I can't support murder.
Yes, sir.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I can't support murder. And quite honestly, it's not like the criminal law pays.
Yeah.
No.
Which one has the money?
No, tell me one rich person right now who's being prosecuted for murder. That no one. Who can pay me? The criminal law doesn't pay.
Yeah.
At all. Tell me one robber right now who's being prosecuted for robbery, who has money, who can pay me. Doesn't. Tell me one rapist who right now is being prosecuted for rape, who has money to pay me.
Yeah.
It really does not pay.
Yes, sir.
At best, if you are going to get paid for assisting people in this kind of situations, it will come from their families, not them.
Yes, sir.
Because these robbers are these guys,
Yeah.
there are these guys by 100,000. wa go reka di uta ba nwa di VSOP kore uta ba nwa di 18 ya reng. You know what I'm saying? They have nothing. These guys are broke as hell. Quite honestly. They have absolutely nothing.
Yes, sir.
Wawan. Ha re o ipetcheditse tota, okay, wa go senka some car, and then what he's gonna do, wa go reka di rimming, ba tsenya mo teng, ba re nga ba e dira, and then ba re brrr mo netu. Mo criminals have no money. And no, they don't.
Yes,
the people, the criminals who have money, likely are the white collar criminals.
Yes, sir.
Those don't get prosecuted. They don't. They don't get prosecuted. You know who gets prosecuted for corruption in this country?
Yes,
The police officer Yojele 50 pula was pitrepe.
Cool drink.
Yeah.
So
how about the corruption statistics? What will we get my $50?
Yeah.
But now we tell our system in Yogo. Machina, Makula, Makua, top dogs monetung. Hey, who you about 300 million? Who you about 500 million? Who you about, billions? So the criminal justice system as it is tailored simply to deal with the poor people.
Yeah.
No one else.
Yes, sir.
Tell me a drug dealer. Those who have the money now, you prosecute you. Drugs are everywhere, so there are drug dealers locally.
Yeah.
You prosecute you. You know who's getting prosecuted right now?
Maletinyana
The victims are the drug dealers are the ones who are suffering prosecution. The end users, by this drug baggers, and got hooked into drugs.
Yes, sir.
Punish about, and we pretend that we are dealing with the drug situation. Because who you know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
And I'm simply 17 or 18 years of age. I'm a victim of some drug lord sitting somewhere in that glorious castle, enjoying drug money. And people will tell you, they will never get arrested. They'll never get investigated. Now. They will turn my whole house upside down. And I'm going to spend at least 2 days.
So the imbalance in our justice system, or if you have the money, then you usually are bound to be free. Baba Kotas, people are saying there's nothing being done in the country. So I don't know, is there ways you think laws could be tightened up so that they could deter people? Because I think it seems like nothing is going on. And, most of these guys end up killing themselves, and sometimes, they go to jail and stuff. I don't know, from your point of view, is there anything else that can be done to try and deter this amount of GBV violence that's going on?
I'll tell you, a lot can be done.
Yes, sir.
2 years ago, because I've been around this field so long, 10 years as a prosecutor and now more than 10 years as a defense lawyer.
Yes,
so I believed that perhaps I had gained sufficient insights from my years,
Yes, sir.
Tatiro, to be able to offer some advice on the issue to government. So I directly sought audience with the then minister or responsible for gender and whatnot.
Yes, sir.
Mema.
The new one?
Mamutahud.
Oh, Mamutahud.
No, that was 2 years ago.
Hey, Mamutahud.
Yes, Mamutahud.
Yes,
and to her credit, she did give me audience. I went to her office, I sat there down with the directors. I had things just spelled out about how gender problems could be tackled.
Yes, sir.
And one of the things that I identified at the time was, okay, how do guys or men, for the most part, because for the most part, gender-based violence is committed by us.
Yes, sir.
Not always, but for the most part.
Yes, sir.
Or at least the most serious forms serious in the form of physical violence that leads to death or permanent injury.
Yes, sir.
Not emotional, but I'm talking about that which threatens life itself.
Yes, sir.
How do men get away with it? Half the time, the victim gets bought out.
Okay.
A young lady gets raped. After she has been raped, or rape you like somebody, let us say in my situation, who has a monthly salary. And guess what happens? She's poor, has in a school hiring. Get like 50 grand ke mama taflo wa mo gana. No ha ka ke. Wa go wa withdraw netwe go.
Le ko lapeng ba mo
Le ko lapeng ba ka mo jampela ha gana. So one of the solutions that I offered was we need a hybrid system that combines relief to the civil law and the criminal law. Hela ha go te motho re ipilo, automatically the magistrate or pronounce on that verdict should not just pronounce sentence for the accused, but should award compensation to the victim to take away the incentive ya hore batho ba prefer go tsaya madi mo matsogong are the people who have abused them. If someone is sure gore system e tla ntshekela and I'll get that compensation through the system, maybe there'll be less incentive for them to accept the money in the hands of these people because they know Muto is going to get punished, and so long as he's been found guilty, I am going to get compensated. So we need a reform of the law along those areas. And part of the problem with it, and I hope we could develop this facet to some extent as time goes on, is rape victims, for example, don't know you can sue your abuser.
For real?
Oh, you can impoverish him. Literally, just for raping you. You can sue him to hell.
That's
You
news.
can.
That's news for
We
us.
need to get people into this. Maybe when these people begin to realize that these remedies are available to them, and those who perpetuate it know that these are possibilities they may have to face. Maybe we can see attitudes changing.
Yes.
But then that doesn't address a fundamental question, why we have GBV. I'll tell you why. Do you know that women have as much opportunity to kill us as we have to kill them?
Probably
It's not about strength. They have more.
because I don't know.
I get in a robot huh? You know,
Yeah.
I mean, within the cultural system. But women have that opportunity to kill us, but they don't do it. We kill them for the exact same things
They don't kill us for.
they don't kill us for.
Yeah.
So what does that tell you? The boy child is screwed up. A girl child gets cheated with 5 girlfriends.
Yeah.
She doesn't kill you. I get cheated with 1. I kill her. Does she suffer less emotional pain? No. She suffers just as much as I do, even more. So she has that resilience that the boy child doesn't have.
Yeah.
The question is, where did she get that resilience? And the boy child doesn't know. So we got to start investigating these issues. Where did we get it wrong with the boy child? And if we can have honest conversations about all these issues, the entitlement mentality, no, Runa Majens, go to Abraham Potaka,
I got bits.
Honka gunpowder.
Yeah. But I bua yalo majita and what hata ro mkhalemele kana ko re ka tlhola ro na le majita le bua na ya betsa no na and then go tla bo thubega ka ditshego. I've lost a couple of friends because of that line of conversation where you're sitting together. E motho a ikhatla ka gore na ke a kona Wow, and then it's like we normalize that.
We normalize it. You know, I have some friends that I hang out with. These are like my inner circle. I have a very clear code with them.
Yeah.
If I hear or you've laid your hand on a woman, we are not friends anymore.
Yeah.
And I don't want all the crappy excuses about anti-release. There's no excuse
none
for putting your hand on a woman. It doesn't matter how much. There's some guy on top of her.
Yeah.
You have no right to beat her up. You have every right to be angry. You have every right to be emotionally disturbed.
Yeah.
In as much as she does, and she doesn't beat you.
Yeah.
So what makes you feel when that your head is more important than hers?
Yeah.
Or page man. You know what I'm saying? So these are the things we need to engage with.
Yeah.
Wawan. These are the things we need to. So with my friends, for example, it's a strict code.
Yeah.
They know. Ubona GBV. Early because I can. It's more like we're having drinks and a friend of mine comes with a marginal kid at the table.
Yeah, man.
Nope.
Either
Either the kid goes or I
pounce.
or I go.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's as easy as that. Either the kid goes
Yeah.
or I go. I can't
Yeah.
permit. So part of the solution is with you and me.
Yeah.
As individuals, within our influence, how do we deal with it?
Yes, sir.
Do we hold our friends accountable?
Yes, sir.
Do we hold our families accountable? Family members, brothers and sisters? Do we do that?
Yes, sir.
If we do that, then we are just failing our children as much as the policy makers are failing them.
Awesome stuff. Hey. Yeah, no, you're breaking it down, brother. You're breaking it down. That's why you have a men's conference.
Yeah.
What happened to the men's conference?
We got the men's conference, you know, we held it. It was more of an inaugural thing. That we were just testing the waters.
Yeah.
And we're just hoping we could get dialogue on these issues.
Yes, sir.
Wawan, we're thinking that we can have men come to define what manhood is.
Yes, sir.
You know, part of the problem that we have had in our society is we've lost some key attributes of our society that kept some things away from us.
Yes, sir.
I'll tell you right now what used to happen. Not that I support it, but I'll give you an example how society, for example, dealt with pedophiles, like old days. Used to know society in a little. But most importantly, this was the most significant aspect of it. You had the initiation schools. I'm not saying everything that they were doing was right.
Yes, sir.
But there were some central things that we lost with their fading out, which were practically useless. I mean, like useful.
Yes, sir.
Initiation schools,
Yes, sir.
for the boy child, defined manhood. Manhood was not defined by reference to sex. Like, when I go to the bathroom, you know, you know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
Manhood was not defined by that.
Yeah.
Manhood was defined by responsibility and accountability. How senama ikarabelo sa tlhokomele bana ba gago sa reng? E ne re le bana ba nna mo lekgoteng go dio ke moshimanyana.
Yeah.
You lost the right to be called a man by being irresponsible and unaccountable mo botshelong ja gago towards those that you had obligations to.
Yes, sir.
Right now, all you hear is, I'm the man, I'm the man, I'm the man. Boo. Oh, you are the man who na go maintenance court thing support ka court order.
Hey.
You know,
Yeah.
I'm not saying everyone who supports a court order or wrong. You know, in speaking like this about men, I don't want to say women are necessarily perfect.
Yes, sir.
Hey, bad abuser. As men, we do get abused a lot. But I have to speak. Kele monna to banna.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
If I don't, it's unlikely that men will hear a woman lecture them on these issues.
Yes, sir.
So my focus will always be more on men
Yes, sir.
than on women, trying to influence change from that perspective.
Awesome stuff.
Yeah.
Now, I completely feel that. I'm going to move swiftly to something that's been news at the beginning of the year, which is corruption in our beautiful BW. There has been a major case just recently, a former director of public
PSP.
Yes, PSP. He's been a PSP. I think he was also the head of the civil service before. So, he's a big guy in Botswana politics and also in the civil service. And, he was sentenced to 7 years. There's been appeals. We're seeing this back and forth between the courts of appeal. We're seeing DPP, his lawyers, the High Court judge. I want to talk about corruption first before we get into specifics. From your experience, how significant is the impact of corruption in Botswana? Because sometimes we see all of these issues. People don't go to jail, or they appeal and they get out of jail. How far, the extent of corruption in Botswana?
Is bad. Corruption is bad. It's taking away so much from our children and from our people, more than you can actually think.
Yeah.
When you hear the kind of figures that are bandied about in those instances where corruption is alleged,
Yes, sir.
some of which we may have encountered in our line of duty, is then that you realize the enormity of the scourge.
Yes, sir.
Billions are being lost to corruption yearly.
Yes.
So when the public rises against corruption, just as when the public rises against demeanor and whatever else,
Yes, sir.
I have a lot of sympathy for all that. Corruption in Botswana is bad. What is worse about it is the one area where the criminal law is least active. I spent at least 10 years prosecuting. I'll tell you, during my days at the DPP, some high-profile names did cross the radar accused of corruption. And they may well have been innocent, quite honestly. I do remember the late Rendelu, I remember the late Matambo, people who, some big names then.
They were on the newspapers.
They were in the newspapers, they were,
Yeah.
all those people. And they could well have been very, very innocent. I'm not even suggesting that they were guilty.
Yes, sir.
And you can imagine how many others. There were many others. Whoever saw jail among them.
Not even a single
The
one.
prisons are full of my 50 Pula roadblock. Those are the people that the system is hard upon.
But, okay, I'm feeling defeated now because I can tell, because I know you just broke it down. If you have money in this country, you can avoid jail.
You can.
So when it comes to because I'm shocked. I mean, this issue is still going on. I'm sure navigate a sentence happens. Usually for any other person, it's sure, Jens get born in 7 years. How did this happen? How is he free?
Yeah. This, to me, firstly, purely from perspective of justice. The law is supposed to be the leveler of all human inequality. The justice system should be the leveler of all human inequality.
Yes.
That's why they say Lady Justice is blind. Wawan.
Yes.
When you enter into a court the court should not say, ke semamang. You know, the punishment he gets and the punishment I get, similarly circumstanced. It's on regardless he has more money than me or I have more money than he does.
Yes, sir.
So when I look at, for example, Remurupis's case, I firstly try, Lantanta, to take his position out of the equation.
Yeah.
Because if I put his position there, there's a likelihood that I'm going to be unfair to him.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to see him as the big dog who escaped jail. So I prefer first to look at him as a citizen who's going through the justice system,
Yes, sir.
who has equal rights as anyone else, whatever his position might have been before, and then look at that purely and say, regardless of position occupy.
Yeah.
And once I have blocked that image from my mind,
Yes, sir.
to the extent that I can, then I'm able to be more objective in my judgment. So this is Remurupis. He goes before Judge Ngakaagae, the High Court. Judge Ngakaagae says, you are going for 6 months and you are paying a fine. Fair enough. If 6 months, will suspend you. Fair enough. I'm quite certain he paid the fine because Hana said well, fine, he would have gone to jail.
Yeah.
And I can assure you, and this is not about him, but I want to pause slightly to show you the injustice of the justice system.
Yeah.
If he paid the fine because he had the money.
Yeah.
A poor person would have gone. You get what I mean?
Yes, sir.
Would have gone. Can I highlight something at that level before we
sir.
go far?
Yeah.
So to say that money doesn't play a role in the justice system often would be false.
Yeah.
I have guys who were long granted bail. I've had them. By the way, they were granted bail today because they do a bail bond, cash bail, 10,000. Abaya who spend 3 or 4 months more relative to the 10,000 they will freedom. And then there's another guy, hella would be 10,000 2 months more back pocket thing. Oh no, really while paying. So resources do play a role. But back to issue ya Remurupis.
Yeah.
Okay, he's home. He appeals on the advice of his lawyer, as he says.
What is he appealing at this point? Now he's paid the fine. He doesn't have to spend time in jail. Leave it alone.
He's appealing against the conviction. We do conviction in mass. Now, conviction can damn you.
So you can't.
How do America or apply a visa about the fingerprint? You are not going anywhere, my brother.
Oh, there's that.
Come so how o apply la program e kana se go titisa di fingerprint o apply la license ya thobolo tisa di fingerprint. I mean, all those instances kana o rua o senka tiro nngwe e be go titisa di fingerprint kampo o botswa mo interview go te have you ever been accused or convicted? If you say yes, that's the end of you. So often, even if we are tronkong, there is a reason to try to fight the conviction.
Yes, sir.
Because the conviction can be quite damning. Even when you are much younger, you cannot completely. It can be career ending. You cannot alone education. How he lost suspended sentence. So that's why some people persist, regardless. And I'm quite certain that would be the reason why. Because this conviction just sits on you like this badge of infamy. Wherever you go, the conviction goes before and after you. You are a criminal because conviction, media and anyone in society now has the right to call you a criminal, and you can't sue them. I could have been convicted. You are a criminal. So who wants to live with that? So you do your best to try and put it aside. So I can understand why he tried to make that move. And then, okay, Court of Appeal, holoha. If I go get a sentence about why I withdraw, I get.
Oh, he
Ebe
tried.
gana, yeah. Aba re withdraw case ya go ebe court of appeal e gana. Gore a withdraw. We are hearing the case because already it's before us. And mo molaong, the court of appeal had a right to do that.
Yeah.
Once case ile hapele ga one, they can allow its withdrawal or they can change it. Hela ha se tsele ha. No, they had a right
Yes.
to insist. Even they have powers to review a sentence.
Yeah.
So to that very extent, though, that you can't fault the Court of Appeal much,
Yes, sir.
in all honesty. And then what happens is, he then says, or the judge, haba review a sentence ya gagwe, e ba e enhancer, aba refer to the Honorable President. This is one thing we took into consideration, utterances made by the Honorable President in his inaugural speech.
Yeah, we saw that.
And then he mathata tswa go no ba ha ile gore le re sentence le reditse gape gore mapolitiki ha reng molao ga o bereke yalo wa bona.
Yes, sir.
Now remember, bare gore we didn't get a fair trial because you brought into the equation extraneous considerations which should not have entered the melting pot.
Yeah. A political statement.
A political statement.
Yeah.
So they go under section 18 of the Constitution. E reng ya la ha your rights di violatilwe. Those bill, what you call section 3 rights,
Yeah.
di violatilwe. You have a right. You have a right. Actually, this one is under section 10, your Constitution. You have a right to approach the High Court
Yeah.
for relief. Now, remember, poso ye, ga se e tang le case go tswa ko tlase. Ke diriwang ke judge wa Court of Appeal. A bua selo se e leng gore according to them, o na sa tshwanna go se bua kana go se dira.
Yeah.
And then ba re nya, me kana Court of Appeal, you may be above all courts, but you are not above the law.
Yeah. Yeah.
You may be above all courts, but only Court of Appeal, you must remain kahatase hamolao, even if you are above all courts. Court of Appeal doesn't mean okay, unconstitutional.
Yeah.
And to that extent, I agree with Murupisi's lawyers.
Yeah.
We cannot afford to place the Court of Appeal above the law. No institution of government, whether it's the High Court or the Court of Appeal or any institution for that matter, must be above the Constitution.
Yes, sir.
If the Court of Appeal behaves unconstitutionally, there must be a remedy for a citizen. He has been affected by that unconstitutionality.
Yeah.
If there's no remedy, then we have practically put the Court of Appeal above the law.
The law, yeah.
Now, kanya ga re Morupisi, e dirwa ke a judge ya Court of Appeal. And I'm not saying he was right or wrong at this point.
Yeah.
I have my views, and if you ask me, I would say I don't think he was supposed to say that.
But some people felt he did it on purpose, conspiracy theorists, because he left that gem there so that
This guy could catch it.
catch on to it. Yeah.
No. I really doubt. I really doubt he did it on purpose.
Yeah.
I really doubt. I think he was simply trying. I may be wrong, but this is my thinking. I think he was trying to say to the executive, "We are with you." That's what I think. He was trying to
Appease the king.
to
Kiss
appease the
ring.
king. He was trying to appease the king.
Yeah.
Precisely. He was trying to kiss the ring.
Yeah.
And in the process, he muddied
Yeah.
the water. That's why you know when honorable president Timothy,
Yeah.
honorable president said this, honorable. To us, it left a bitter state as lawyers. It left a bitter taste in our mouth. You didn't have to mention that, if you ask me. So Murupisi says the Court of Appeal has kicked me below the belt by bringing political considerations into judgment. Harre Murupisi asa itsheke. Hela ka gore institution e bidiwa Court of Appeal. Me are e behavile unconstitutionally. Ga se kganye e tswang ko tlase. E dirilwe ke ona Court of Appeal itself. So how Court of Appeal e violated your human rights or e violateile maybe le bo gongwa go bonala gore ka boammaruri ba ka tswa ba dirile jalo Motswana o itsheka kae does he find a dark corner to hang himself and what do we mean when we say that Court of Appeal errors? And I'm not talking about errors to judgment. Those are not appealable because they are the last court in the land. But we are talking about where the conduct of the Court of Appeal itself is wrong as opposed to its decision. Because the Basekisa Court of Appeal itself conduct ya yone it's unconstitutional. And people by misa gone ho ga se kgang ya gore ra appeal decision ya high court to the lower court. But the lower Court of Appeal, who are supposed to be protecting us, you behaved unconstitutionally, and High Court under the Constitution and in terms of Section 18 in a letter ya gore ha di tshwanelo tsa rena di violated. So Remorupisi is well within his rights to be doing what he's doing, according to me.
Yes, sir.
I hope the Court of Appeal rules that way. It may not. I don't know what they will rule. But Nahela, if you ask me.
So it's at the Court of Appeal, you're in the case that thing happen.
Right now, Ibo is the Court of Appeal.
Where now Court of Appeal has to judge against the conduct of one of its judges.
Where they have to judge against the conduct of one of the judges.
Wow.
Yes, controversial, but what can we do? We don't have a constitutional court. I mean, at the same time, I wouldn't put it beyond the Court of Appeal to be impartial, even if one of them is involved. I did case here, Kgosi Ngakaagae,
5 years old.
That very one. I did his appeal.
Yes, sir.
I did his appeal. It came before the Court of Appeal. At that time, when I was arguing his appeal before, I didn't do the trial.
Yes, sir.
When it was coming before the Court of Appeal, Judge Ian Kirby, yone nga mo kokotela 5 years.
Yeah.
In a president of the Court of Appeal. But the judges overruled Kirby of the Court of Appeal. So the fact that they are on the same bench doesn't necessarily mean that they will be biased towards one of them. They have proved before that notwithstanding that a decision may be from one person who is now with them, they may still be able to be independent. So it's not a foregone conclusion.
I'd forgotten you were somewhere in that case. It's complicated. Still, well, so he is within his rights. So we'll see. I mean, Facebook Live and so I'm guessing we should be able to get a result sometime soon because it seems the court never closes. Like a weekend, let me see who. Do you guys have operating hours? Like, how does this work? On a Saturday, you can find people mentioning somewhere at a courthouse.
Hey, we are firefighters. A firefighter, because literally we live to fight fires. And virtually rather.
Yes, sir.
At any given time, somebody and ha ngwe ke family ba ngwe ba re hita stopo tsa tseno go Friday wa bona yo mwa re hita ka Saturday phakela ka 8 am yo mwa re nya me ke na le tshwanelo ya go se hita yo mwa re nya ke na le tshwanelo. You have to go to court because if you don't go to court that night ka Friday kana during the holiday phakela motho hitilo ha tsa hitilo akela mokatolo. So we are firefighters practically. We are on call 24/7. If gompieno, God forbid, they take you in Holy Friday, your family want to know if something can be done before Monday. They're not going to say, no. You know, they're not going to say that. They want to know if something can be done the next hour to take you out. So that's essentially the kind of work we do.
I want to talk a little bit about what some of your high-profile cases that involve your white-collar crime, because some of them were never really sentenced, or you pretty much won them. And let's start with this one. The Botswana Housing Corporation deputy manager Rabana. Some people like to because these are high profile people, and apparently while the case was going on, he went to South Africa and he never came back, and there was never an extradition for him to come back and face the music. I'm just trying to figure out, Honor, is this another case of, people who have money being able to get away with things? And if you can break down to us what exactly the case was about.
Yeah, no, briefly, it was a case of alleged corruption.
Yes, sir.
Hey, some company go sponsor the family go Disneyland in exchange for this and that. That was the case. And this is a case from the 90s when it began. I probably wasn't even at law school then.
Yeah.
I only got involved with it, specifically more defensing, when Rabana engaged me to try and, because he's not been home since then, since the early. So what did happen was that somewhere along the way, he was here, the case wasn't proceeding, perhaps as fast as it should have, because he was here for quite a long time. It's a case about 91. I think it was around 98, 99. Yeah. So in the meantime, Botswana, his life has come to pretty much a standstill because the case is not ending. Yeah. He didn't investigate and run away. No. Yeah. No. So in fact, local. But 9 years or 8 years down the line, the case is nowhere near being finished. And his career has come to a standstill and all that. So he decided, of course, to go to South Africa.
Yes, sir.
And started a new life there. And once you've started a new life there, and if things are going for you, coming back, you've maybe hit it big there. Yeah. Coming back to Botswana to risk not going back to your business is another thing. You have to start weighing the options. And then Botswana, they did launch an extradition case, by the way. But the extradition case, South Africa, it stalled.
Okay.
Yeah, it hasn't really gone that far. Yes. As far as I know, the extradition case has not been closed. My involvement was simply to get him back home, which I haven't lost hope of doing. It's been quite difficult, honestly.
Yeah.
But I haven't lost hope of actually doing that. I feel I owe him that duty to get him back home, and I'll keep pushing until something gives someday. Yes. Look, a case here was 1991. Remote 2024. This is 34 years late. Or thereabout. 33, 34.
Yeah, it's about 34.
Does even one witness exist? I wasn't going to So and most of these people who temba mo corruptile nearly ba twa di contract bona di tsa ma Italy tsa Montariana tsele tsa mogolo tsele. They have gone back to their countries. Ha ke re ke leba di witness statements a teng. Ba bangwe ka 1991 ba le bo 54 years, ba bangwe ba le bo 60.
Oh my word.
What are the chances that they will ever come back to testify?
No.
So essentially what is happening is there's really no hope, even if we were to come back, that the country could put him to an effective trial, because certainly all the witnesses have faded away by the natural process. But obviously because of his new life there, it's inconvenient for him even to come here and test the waters.
Definitely.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Practically speaking, even if he were to come back, I mean, they could put him probably in a cell or jail for, but they wouldn't
have anything.
They wouldn't have anything to do with him.
Another high-profile case that you did, because now I would like to have you here for about 2 hours. But sometimes when people see like the number, the hour, so that we can wrap it up. It is Monday, Wednesday anyway. So I wanted to get into Bakang Seretse.
Yeah.
82 million pula. I firstly want to know how did he come to you? Did he call you up and say, yo, how did you guys link up?
No. Like I've always said, it's always family that reacts.
Oh, the family.
Yeah, it's always family that reacts.
Be nice to your family,
guys. And, momolaong, upon arrest, upon arrest, you have every right to family assistance. You have every right to legal assistance. But sadly, our law enforcement agencies don't necessarily always respect that rule. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. And when they think the stakes are high, they trample upon that rule with impunity. I have sued the state right now on maybe 4 cases where they refused people access to family and to legal representation, where the state now is supposed to pay costs for that refusal.
How about tshwere? Ke ra in concept of tshwaro. How tshwere? What rights do you have?
Right to assistance by a lawyer, right from the point of arrest. You have a right to assistance by a lawyer. And they're supposed to read you your rights. You have a right to remain silent, among others. Anything you say may be used for or against you in a court of law. You have such rights. But at that point, for the most part, those rights are very inconvenient to them because they are looking at milking you as much as possible. They would sometimes even go to the extent of torturing you. There's still torture in the country. It still happens. Hopefully, it will fade down because we have a human rights inclined government. But it's been there the entire time. And it's practiced in more ways than one. There are cases in my office right now that torture. But those are the kind of rights that people have. So going back to case, I'll say Yahabike because that's what I call him.
Yes, sir.
Going back to case, obviously it was the family who said Ngwana Rona is in a situation. Actually, it's his business.
Yes, sir.
We don't know the relaying. Can you find us out for us because we're now Mutuamala? And then of course I start making, and for 2 days I couldn't even access them because the DCC were running all over the place.
It's 82 million bucks. It's a lot of money.
No doubt it's a lot of money. But for 2 days, I remember it was the second day that I was able to locate them. Even then, DCC and NTC Akabone all over the place.
So
to the extent, no, Nas knows. To the extent that we knew their 48-hour allowance, detention without warrant, would expire within 48 hours. So what we did, because we knew the DCC now were running, we deployed, that is really from my office, I deployed people in all the courts. Literally every court. So go DCC, that's when I learned. I go regional and then I dash there. So when Basanze Barba appeared before Magastrata, because no police or Bahotan go regional, by heads are sent so not out of the Magastrata 14 days. So Hela Batsana we already knew. So we were there and we immediately applied.
So
we immediately applied for bail. We immediately applied for bail. And then we were successful in getting them out. So that is really how I encountered the case.
So with cases like that, I mean, this is the government trying to I guess yank out corruption. How easy is it for you as a because lawyers are never scared of these moments. How do you tell yourself, okay, this is something that I can take on, or this is too big for me? Because I don't think anything is too big for you. So I'm trying to figure out how do you because government is the biggest employer and the biggest payer in the country. How do you balance this out? Or okay, my family life, or am I trying to be under the red hot beam of government?
Yeah, I've operated with one personal philosophy. When I find myself on the side of power or on the side of the majority, I know I'm probably doing something wrong. If I find myself on the side of power or on the side of the majority, I know I'm probably doing something wrong. I prefer to take my own decision away from the trappings of power and the influence the public. Judge for myself and then take a decision.
Yes, sir.
That's why most of the cases that I do, people lynch me for them because I take an independent decision. You see, the issue about KCA that you are talking about, now we can talk about it because the criminal cases are over. This was a sad issue. I'll tell you why. And this is why the case never went anywhere. What Bobike were being prosecuted for were things that the government itself had done.
Yeah.
You have a letter from the late former DIS chief, Kgosi, saying pay 250 million pula to Dignia Systems International, Israel. And we have that letter. Dignia Systems International. This is during Rekama's rule.
Yeah.
To Dignia Systems International. Bo Bakang Seretse are the transactional advisors for the account hold and the money, because they are the people charged with the administration of the NPF.
Yeah.
So the instruction is from government to them.
Yes, sir.
Their duty is to invest the money and give the government returns on the money. But government decides that the money you are holding, which is ours, we will deploy the money towards some other use. The purchase of firearms, training Yama Commando, literally, I'm saying these things literally. This is what it was about.
Yeah.
I have all the paperwork.
Yes, sir.
Training Yama Commando for DIS, purchase the firearm, the drone, you know what? This is government now diverting the funds away from energy, petroleum, and stuff.
So this is what now is being bought in Israel. So
Now had the media ne abetsu energy. Rele government la dueleko. So Bobby K are like, no. Now you are taking us out of our mandate.
Yeah.
They do it in writing. We have the letters. Any day you can walk by my office and see them. But no, you are taking us out of our mandate. If you are taking us out of our mandate like that, you are asking us to do tiro we are not contracted for.
Yeah.
So we are going to levy an invoice for now doing work that we are not. Because now we are handling all your purchases internationally and all that. Yeah, this huge amount that you are holding. And guess what happens? They write and say, okay, look, this is going to be the amount we are charging. 40M for the entire work.
Yeah. As commission for doing the work, yeah.
Yeah, literally. This, I'm talking facts now.
Yeah.
I'm not giving hypothetical scenarios.
Yes, sir.
40M is going to be our charge for the whole work. But Kgosi right. They don't say yes or no. They say crack on. When but you charge 20,000, then you say crack on. What are you saying? Sharp. This is exactly what government did. So they cracked on. They paid Dignia Systems. They were supposed to pay 230 million. They paid 118 million on purpose. Because Mohobone, they were surprised, Hori. How can you pay the whole amount before delivery? You have to pay a deposit, have delivery, and then you go to pay the balance.
Yes, sir.
So, this would be irregular. La go 230. Na re duela 118. Which is exactly what they did. They paid Dignia Systems 118 million pula. Transfer the money to Israel. Fair enough. More did mandates are hormente. Habato ba dire tirotse. About 40 million, and they wrote specifically. And this is why they never went to jail. But out of that 40 million will be deducted from the capital amount. That is the amount we are administering. The letter is there. So they cracked on. How about now for the M1? DCC comes in. Bobby K. Now we never authorized that. Hey, buddy, here is your letter with your own signature. Again, now they have to account to the public or how did you agree to this? This did not follow procurement processes, ordinary procurement processes. Hey, how can you pay? So instead of accounting to the public and saying, we made a mistake, we authorized this without, they blamed Bobby K. This is the reason they never went to jail. They blamed Bobby K. DCC goes all over them, airing it. So when we get to court, Now I produce the correspondence.
Yeah.
I produce everything. The state doesn't deny this correspondence. Even until today, the state has never denied that correspondence.
So they knew it was legit.
They knew it was legit. It's only that administratively, those who had authorized it could not account for it. And guess what? Bahita kontraka ya bone le Dignia Systems, gore they actually agreed with Dignia Systems over the money. Ke tswa go bona go morago ba e gatile go DIS. Ke bone go morago yela. Ibile le Samuel Wishes who picked it and said, "Kana bona dio tse batho ba di hitileng." And we immediately filed it before court. Gore, this is how dirty the system can be. In the meantime, the public all it hears ke gore bo Bakang Seretse ba utsule ba sentse ba dirile eng ba rileng. The full story is not be. That's why when we got to court go broadcast, I said at the time, Kgosi was still the DIS director.
Yeah.
And I said, my clients are not sitting in this box. Kgosi aso le bone mo go yone. I want him in. I want him here. Because the owners of this transaction are the ones who are supposed to be, but they are enjoying. That's why eventually Kgosi got charged. Because somewhere along the way, the state realized there's no way these people are going to be found guilty when the owners of the transaction are not part of the people in the dock. Of course, the political climate had changed. So essentially, Kgosi was no longer more stilong.
Yes, sir.
Rekama, this was 2018, udule mo stilong. Borre masisi motujile 3 million. Kana kwa te Rekama is president ka bitsa masisi ata tsene mo boxing. Ata tlhalose ka 3 billion wa mo jeleng ka gore gate mo mo benefita.
No, the khatir du twile.
Wa bona. Borre masisi o jele 3 million. No, it's not a secret.
No, the khatir tsone
It's
di
there.
a bontshiwa.
O jele gate yo o benefitileng. Wa seka. Remasisi o kae o jeleng 3 million. Borre Rekama ntu ya gagwe e hale. Una contribute to madi. Una regetswe caravan. This affects.
The caravan.
No one can deny them even today. But is there a government which is now shooting at these guys? The same people who benefited. I asked for a meeting with Rekama. Soon last night, I did go to his office. I asked for a meeting with him, and he sat down. I'm like, say, Kgosi yami like all that. I don't want to take you by surprise. Because now I'm going to subpoena you. Because as far as I'm concerned, you people have to testify. You have to take my clients out. This was your transaction. So I'm paying you the courtesy of knowing that you need to deal with your issue. If you don't, we are obviously going to meet in court. And you will be on the other side. You'll be on the other side. You asked me if I was afraid going there. Yes, I was.
Yes, sir.
You don't just approach a big guy like that. Yes,
Hand-to-hand combat.
But yeah, hand-to-hand combat. But you know what? At the same time, you have a duty to clients. And if you are not going to put in that heart, then you should not be doing the case in the first place. If you are not up to it, don't get involved.
I personally think this was one of the bravest things I've seen a lawyer do, in that everything in the climate looked like it was against what you were fighting for, including the power structure that was there as well. I want to speak to you on the power that presidents and other civil people have in Botswana. Is it too much? Do they have too much power to be able to rebel? This noise starts up,
That's exactly what they did. These guys benefited from NPF money. And I'm not saying they were criminal, but they did benefit. Others are being tried. You see, this is the corruption we were talking about earlier on, where the high and mighty are shielded by power and position. And then the Morolo Musisa and BK are made to pay the price, corruption, or alleged corruption to be exact. Bailing they are high and mighty. You see what I mean? Kore hate yala hote nya hell harika hamongwa ka seka aseka. Batswana ga bana hore le ba sente so
Someone has to go down.
someone has to go down. Go tlo go ta go thopia ba ba sesanyane. E ba fasiwa mo teng ba ba tona e be ile gore ba absolve you. It's the exact same thing that I encountered, in my prosecution days. I did case ya Galui in Chindo.
Yes, sir.
I did it with the now Judge Puteo. He was my senior at the time.
Yes, sir.
He still is because he's a judge.
Yes, sir.
I did case ya Galui. We were prosecutors at the time.
The block 10.
70 hectares of land that government had earmarked for allocation to the landless citizen. Baba Modi waiting list is 70 hectares, 70 football fields in extent. If we change that designation, ya gore ya go allocate batho through some convoluted chicanery, ebe ya go hella mo matsogong a motho ale one wrenching. And then the case comes to us. That was actually, I was returning from Stellenbosch at the time.
Yes, sir.
And then, obviously, ke khora ke tswa sekolong gora re tafula mi ikli. Ha ke na di case, ha ke ra ke tsamaya ke dinela bangwe ba ditsweledise.
Yes, sir.
So ha ke bua yana ke gone ke neelwa di case tse dingwe.
Yes, sir.
So tafula mi ikli. So the docket lands on my table because ha ke na tiro ke tla ke reka magunyala le ke ja serobe. Ke ja serobe mo netting. And that's essentially how it came by.
Yes, sir.
And then we crack on with the case. This is during the Mogai administration. Mogai is angry at what happened.
How did he end up with all of this land? and
Because
stuff?
Mchindo lied to him. Arle hatsile hiwa Botswana. And then he convert that to personal use. Mogai is fuming. Mogai is fuming.
I agree, it's the one
We
across
met
the road
we
from...
Lord Exitoa.
Hey, across the road from the other Debswana.
Exitoa. We meet with Remogai at the time.
Yeah.
And Remogai is like, nope. I want this thing to be sorted out. He's not giving us an instruction. We are briefing him on the issue because it is of interest
Yes, sir.
to the public. And it's like, no, this problem must be dealt with. Luna, ke luna bangale phata. But nna ke le Mogai, if you need me to walk into court to testify, gore monna o nkakeditse, I will do it. That's what he said. So we meet with Mogai. We meet with him. And to his credit, he remained true to his word. 2008 April, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was in April.
Golconda, get the company.
Golconda.
Yeah.
2008
I had
April.
this on the radio called Golconda.
2008 April, exactly. 2008 April, guess what happens? Mogai steps down. If I'm getting the date right.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think it was 08 April.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, because it coincided. It was around that time, let me just say. Mogai steps down. A new government comes in. The government that comes in is now hostile to the prosecution. This, I want to show you how rotten the government system is and why all these pretenses about fighting corruption are all crap, for lack of a better word.
Yes, sir.
There's some other vocabulary I wanted to use, which I won't use it. I promise I won't.
No.
Yeah, let's just end with crap.
Yes, and
Let's just end with crap. A new government comes in and it's hostile to the prosecution. Meanwhile, to register Kgosi Ngakaagae, the pressure was so much on us not to register it. The now Judge Putego and I, because we were the lead prosecutors in the matter, he was my boss.
Yeah.
In the matter, we had to take a decision. We waited for Christmas. Parliament tswale molongwa ya magaeng a renga ali 23 tsa December re tswe molongwa tsamaile ga yo mo gaborone e be re kukuna re a ko go village magistrate court, they register a case, that's exactly what happened.
For justice.
Because so long as the system was on, it was not allowed.
No, but
for that to
block
happen.
from the inside. Like, they just make things strenuous.
They came to our bosses, they tried to block the prosecution.
Oh, snap.
Before we even charged Relwin Chindo, Park staffer calls me from Collins Newman. It could only be or have been given to him by someone within the system.
Yeah.
So already, hell. I'm drafting a charge sheet. What's the draft there?
I get a Dr. Tane, he was like, I don't know what role he was.
That is essentially what was happening. Now, the new system doesn't want Renchindo charged.
Yeah.
So the government system that's supposed to help the DPP fight corruption is straight on the side of corruption itself.
Yeah.
Renchindo must not face the music. You know why? The prior elections, the 2000 and was it 2009? Was that before 2018?
Just 2004.
2004.
I think so, yeah.
He had sponsored the entire cabinet in their
Jesus
campaigns.
Christ.
I had the list. All the names, the whole lot of them. He had sponsored the entire cabinet to maybe exclusion of one person.
Yeah.
We managed to get the list of all the people he had in fact sponsored. They don't want his prosecution. Completely. So they stood against us.
Yeah.
So now Judge Puteho, then, I called him MP. We sit down and we're like, buddy, look, the DCC have done what little they could. Ratamon Katolo was the DPP director then. He was, I have to give some kudos to him.
Yes, sir.
He was the DCC director then, and Rekatolo is like, okay, guys, now you have my support. We check out with our boss then, now Dambe, Judge Dambe. Yeah. Judge Dambe says, guys, you just go ahead now, I'll cover your backs against the system. I'll cover your backs against the system. Luna, you march ahead. Yeah. And she lived up to her word. Lars now timadi phone be risiara meraking gore baska re tshwara ba molletsa ba ra yo na gizi le megala bona itse me no na itzwere go obviously she didn't know, but there was so much political pressure not to deal with this massive corruption that we were dealing with. Yes, you know, it's the first time I'm talking about this case like I am talking about it right now. So we are there, we go through the prosecution. These are the painful things. How do I agree? More corruption, really by. Maybe the new government will do better. Yeah. But the past governments, that was all nonsense. Yeah. We crack on with the case, and we are before the village magistrates court. 24/7, we are on. We're working 18-hour days through and through. And we're getting, these guys have hired Rolls-Royce counsel from South Africa, and they are really on the roll. This guy has so much money. He's able to face up to the government. Yeah. He's not the guy Wamutokwani who's facing 300 cars. He has 300 cars his own, virtually speaking, not literally. Yeah, he has 300 cars his own, or at least he can buy them if he wanted. Yes, sir. So he's got the money to fight. So he gets all this Rolls-Royce counsel from South Africa, and they come up, they show up, and we say to ourselves with the other guy, we're like, okay, you know what? So long as we have petrol and we have our files, screw the system. If they don't want this guy to be prosecuted, we are going to do it. If they don't give us the cars at work, we'll use ours, DPP to village. We can take that on our own. If they don't take the files away from us, that's fine. Yeah. We'll work with what we have. Yeah. So we take a decision with our then boss that we are cracking on whatever the situation might be or will be. So we get on with it. The system opposes. When our big boss then, Judge Dambe, refuses to budge, they try to transfer her. Hey. She refuses. And no, this affects. They try to transfer her. She refuses. She sticks with us. We maintain the prosecution. we go on. Ha ke tla go bona gore the system is really screwed up.
Yeah.
I recall we were making one application before court. We filed our case. And we are going after this corruption case. Our then Minister of Justice was Bakang Seretse. He was then our Minister of Justice. I had briefed Bakang Seretse like twice on the case as the Minister of Justice, just to give him an idea. Because we didn't brief them for about head instruction.
Yeah.
No, so that they know from the department why we are doing what we are doing. And if I'd even prepared them dossiers. We had prepared them dossiers. So they knew fully what we were after.
Yeah.
And they had never questioned us for the entire time we were making these briefings to them.
Yeah.
They'd never done that.
Yeah.
And suddenly we are here. We are like, okay, we are cracking on with the case. We filed this application against Bora and Chindo.
Yeah.
Guess who the opposing affidavit to the state's own application?
It can't be in Delu.
It was Rendell. My minister opposing a state's case, opposing the DPP, in our efforts to get justice, Repack staffer affidavit against us. And I remember the words of that affidavit. It's still there, the DPP. And Rona, whilst Rebona, from the government side, which could be of concern to us. In other words, the DPP are on a frolic of their own. Literally thrown under the bus by our own government as the DPP.
Jesus Christ.
We have full docket full of statements. And then we did an affidavit at the time. I remember we sat down, we are going under. No, Ravaya. We are going under. What do we do? I said, no, look, you and I know the facts of the case. Let me depose to an affidavit and deal with the allegations more in his affidavit.
Because he's pitting you against an
no, reseka in the name of government. Government what's left of the case? Nothing.
There's nothing left at all.
So essentially, I had to do an affidavit now as a lawyer to deal with. I'm not supposed to be doing affidavit in a case I'm prosecuting.
Yeah.
But I had to do an affidavit as a lawyer to deal with what Seretse was saying. And then we just trashed everything he was saying, quite plainly.
Yeah.
By that time, we really didn't care whether we got fired or not.
Yeah.
You know, we just decided, you know what, you know, we can't have people who are supposed to be protecting us now standing on the other side, fighting us in the discharge of just because the then political administration does not want the prosecution. Not that he didn't see the corruption, he just didn't want the prosecution.
Because there was chance of what? Of conviction.
There was a chance of conviction, and a real chance for that matter. There was a chance of conviction. You remember, there was a chance of conviction. Now, what happens is we do the affidavit, we go to war, whatever happens, happens. We pass that stage, and we suffer a further betrayal, still from our government. You know, I've never said these things before.
I'm in shock.
You know what I mean? We got a betrayal from our own government. That's why I'm not afraid to say them publicly, because they're documented.
Yeah.
You go take the DPP file, you're going to find them straight in that file.
Jeez.
One of the people that was supposed to testify for the state, the DCC had obtained his statement because then Re Mogai was the president.
Yeah.
And Re Mogai was clear about where he stood. Batswana ba tsieditswe dirang tiro a lona.
Yeah.
So Renkate then was the Minister of Lands, or had been the Minister of Lands. Kana kuine le hasela ga re Ntshindo le kra le hasele ne elwa re Ntshindo. So Renkate na di statement ela se se clear gore nya na ne re itse re ha DBS kana Botswana no DBS.
Yes.
Ilo re ha the Botswana ya go dira manobo go ha le di tourist ya di go mahatseng tla bo di tsena ha le go tla go na le employment go na ga re itse re kile re ha re Ntshindo le hatsi ke re Renkate mo statement e son se se kanetsweng hape le ga mapodisi literally is there. Go check. Ask the DPP to give you the docket. That's why I'm not scared to tell you this thing.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So that you kind of get an idea of how corruption festers.
Yes.
Systems protect corruption. So we are there. And time comes, remember I know the regime did change, the new regime have this prosecution. But now since there are statements about now how regime encha, it's a puso. The minister has the real in the statement that's the view ya the new regime is sabbatical because they have to save their lives and their jobs. Suddenly, yesterday we had witnesses, today we have none. Because people are trying to align. So I remember we meet with, I think, Renkate had been given a new role then. Around the air Botswana, what?
Bobs.
Export whatnot. I think another responsible for it was an office dealing with trade, I think international trade.
Okay.
So we met with Renkate 2 times. Okay, yeah, I think it was twice.
Okay.
I may be wrong, but I think it was twice. But what I know is we met. We meet with Renkate. MP, my partner in crime. We get there. And we sit there in the office with him, in his office. No, rebala statement mo. Busupi wa rama podisi se le se gore re Ntshindo ne le samahale hatsi ne la Botswana gareng. We went through everything. We are preparing him for court. Ra court 2 days after. Remaga is a court only today. Ra court 2 days after. Muzenda mo witness standing. We get to court. The day after tomorrow, Renkate comes to court. Changes his story in court. Completely. Nane rizu yer Ntshindo le hatsi. Ne re itse re ha re Ntshindo le hatsi ga se asela de Botswana ke la ga re Ntshindo now o aligna le check the DPP docket. That's why I'm free to talk about it because it's documented. Nane re itse le hatsi re le ha re Ntshindo. Our own minister under the bus.
Everyone else is now through. So
mongwe le mongwe o di campile yana go setse morago mono wa puso encha re mo ga ya kere o tsamaile
ka dio tsa gago go raya
o tsamaile ka dio tsa gagwe and we are like okay fair enough kana has na go ha bosupi a re bone ba itse kana ha ke ne le minister of lands ke na hile ya no ha minister of lands a buile tota santse re ta reng. So we saw the case just crumble on our faces like that. So after his abusupi ja gagwe kana na kere ho o botswa dipotso ke advocate Hodis who was representing Ntshindo.
The other side,
o bolela advocate sengwe advocate sa Hodis a se buang wa se confirm everything ya na re togetse yana. So ka re sese ra lebana le MP ra go pieno a gona go ba re iteile bra yaka there's nothing we can do. So ra lebana mo matlhong re go original court kwa ka e ka kwa ga real crossing ele ya broadest
shame man
industrial ra go tsamaile hela lo bra yaka. So MP says what do we do? And I'm like buddy Japan. If we are going down, if we are going down, let's just go down with them once. we can't let Renkate get away with this.
Yeah.
It's betrayal of the worst kind.
Yeah.
He's Nirnana the day before yesterday. He comes to court, he changes his story. So we are like, no, I can't hold.
Oh, so I say I can't.
Essentially, the process it works like this. Haratsena. There's a point where the defense lawyer, Ele Rehodis, Amotsa Dipotso. So, Hare Hodis Amotsa Dipotso. Omotsa Dipotso obviously are favorable to his client.
Yeah.
So Renkato was yes. Na again rebile mo hwene. Ora case ya rena crumble practically. Now, hona le processing wa mo molaong wiko. Ra re gona le go declare mosupi hostile. Go declare mosupi hostile, you have to cross-examine your own witness. O supetse le khotla re ga bui. Boammaruri bosupi ja go then botla bo bolathiwa. Ko ra bo go solegele molemo le DPP, ha bo bo solegele mo molemo. Now we are like, MP, what do we do? And then eventually we reach an agreement, say, let's go down with them. Let's attack in court.
Yeah.
Not in the physical sense, but in court.
Yeah.
Let's expose. So we took his statements, we read it up to him in court, and we took him to task on it. Full force. Just to show he's not telling the truth. And we told him, you are lying. You're not telling the truth. I remember one guy, I'm doing the cross-examination, the examination. I remember one guy, you will get fired. You'll get fired. But by then, it was more like, let it go which way it will. Come on, man. What do you have to lose? It's not profitable. Who wants to keep a job like that to begin with? Where your own government subverts justice, where your own government assists corruption, and all that kind of stuff. So quite often, when I saw guys on TV, and they were ministers or whatever, then we're doing this case, we are fighting corruption. I just felt like shooting the TV. I was like, no, I felt like just getting a gun and going bang on the TV.
Yes.
There was that anger within me that was building up. So, this is how it was. But we managed to finish off Renkat at the time in the courtly procedural way.
Yes, sir.
At the time. And guess who came to testify after? Immediately, he came. He literally came. He was the first president to enter the witness box and testify against corruption in a case involving his own friend. For that, I will always respect him. I'll always respect him.
And the
word that he had given us before, or I'll be there if you need me, he lived up to it through and through.
Respect to him, though.
That's exactly what is. So, corruption.
I don't know. Toto, we absolutely appreciate you sharing that with us because it gives us a proper idea of what was going on Block 10. So in a hand up, it's a working man.
Okay, this is what happened from now when I'm coming from Molepolole, the then Attorney General Dr. Molukumme.
Yeah.
Because I've been having a trial at the Magistrates Court. So the Attorney General's Chambers building. So it's like around 5 o'clock. So then I'm lifting, I'm going to my office. So hela lifti ibuleha. Mamolukume is in the lift. I think she was coming from the basement. And she's like, come in. So I'm joining I'm lifting. Nagahol floor 4 and I can floor 11, 12. So Mamolukume is like, no, you are not getting off. Come with me to my office. Yeah. So I proceed with Mamulukume to her office, floor 12. We get there. And then, open the fridge, get yourself a drink. Oh, yeah. Can I say, it's been a hard day. You will have fridge, get a drink. I sit on the couch. She sits there. She's like, I don't know if I have bad or good news for you, but... Okay. I think she said something like, I have news for you. And I'm like, what? news of those. It's like, your client was found dead. My client, who are you talking about? It's like Louis Chindo. We're coming from a cabinet meeting. That's what we've been discussing. I tried to call you. Your phone couldn't go through. I was obviously in court. But your client was found dead today. Oof. Louis Usule. All right. I call MP. MP, my partner, then my striking partner.
Yes, sir.
Hey, nothing's good. Why do you look? I had the motu. Oof, we meet quickly. Yeah, so no, we'll play it by the ear over the coming days. I'm coming to your question.
Yes, sir.
And then it's now late 2009 or early 2010. As the case is going on, there are a whole lot of things that are happening within the system that are really getting under my skin. Which are unconnected to the Chindo case.
Yes, sir.
It's administrative stuff. And at the end of 2010, I left the government.
Yeah.
Chindo Nasutwalimo Dokung, obviously, because he wasn't there anymore.
Yes, sir.
But the other guys, Bobo, Rematome, Lebabangwe, were still there. The High Court found them guilty.
Yeah, I remember.
The High Court found them guilty. Their lawyers appealed. When they appealed, I had left government.
Yeah.
I had left government already.
Yeah.
And then the Court of Appeal overturned the appeal.
Court of Appeal.
They had their own reasons. The Court of Appeal overturned their appeal, and which meant Renchindo gets to keep the land or his estate. He gets to keep the land or keep his estate. That's how the land was never recovered. The Court of Appeal overturned. Now, corruption, give me a break.
I think this is
Give me a break.
It leads me to
Give me a break.
my closing question, which is, how do you deal with all these matters? How do you cope? Do you check a therapist? Do you do yoga? Do you hit the bottle?
No.
How do you cope with all of this, including the criminal stuff, including having to deal with administrative stuff, political stuff? Because the law in its own, Totelo, has so many things around it. So how do you deal with Kgosi?
Man, it can be quite taxing.
Yeah.
It can be quite taxing. It's not an easy thing when you are doing your case, you have an infant daughter, and someone puts up a big post to say, I hope they kill your daughter. And then your wife brings it to you to say, look, at this. It's not a small thing when you get all that kind of abuse, almost on a daily basis. If there was one case I was insulted for, they went overboard. But it's fine. I just took it on the chin. I just took it as part of, as an occupational risk, for lack of a better word. And I decided I would keep my eyes on the ball. But the one thing that really anchors you, to answer your question directly, in those circumstances is when you have a family structure that believes in what you are doing, more in the purity of your conscience about what you are doing,
why you
and are willing to support you and to be there for you. You leave the workplace, you are tired, you find acceptance, you find support, they check on you, they try to make whatever difficulties or they try to make the terrain less painful
Yes, sir.
than it could otherwise be.
Yeah.
You can imagine how that would turn out if, say, you went down home after a day like that to war on the family front.
Hey.
Your wife is waiting to
Have it on
top
that
you
way.
up. So we have to thank
Yeah.
people like that.
Yes, sir.
You know, my wife has been a pillar of strength
Yes, sir.
throughout my career, always trying to make sure I'm as comfortable as I can be
Yes, sir.
in the circumstances. And that has made the road less painful that it could otherwise have been. My kids, my sisters, and my friends. They've all been there for me. And even to this very day, you know, it doesn't matter how old or how big you may get to be in your eyes or in the eyes of people. Family means everything. You know, there was a time when I was watching TV or it was a picture, I can't recall it, but I think it was TV. The guy Michael Jackson, and the mother was sitting next to him in court.
Yeah.
Hey, Michael Jackson is the biggest
Yeah.
dog out there.
Yeah.
Does he even need a mother?
At that point, hey.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But at that point, you need a mother, bro.
Hey, at that point, you need
You need a mother.
Yeah.
You know, just them being there next to you
Yeah.
and you knowing you can trust in their total support, unconditional support. Knowing that these are people who will accept you however much the world rejects you.
Yes, sir.
Is perhaps one of the biggest blessings that you can have in life, a family that cares.
Awesome stuff.
And, you know, thankfully for me, I've never had to struggle with that.
Yeah.
My family has always been around me, immediate, extended wife, children, siblings, and friends.
Yes, sir.
You know, and not only those, there's a lot of goodwill that comes with other people. You know, I remember during the Louis case, we'd be so stressed up. And as we were getting all these disappointments, we'd wonder sometimes whether we should not be throwing in the towel.
Yeah.
And then you get a call from Mogolo Mongwe, randomly. And it's like,
Hey.
we know, we can see. I got so many calls like that.
Yes, sir.
We know, and we can see what is happening. Keep it up.
Yes.
Keep it up. We are with you all the way. We may not be able to say it because we are in the system. So not just family, even the nation,
Yeah.
when they really get to that sense where they realize what you are doing
Yeah.
is for the best
Yeah.
and is out of a genuine conscience,
Yes, sir.
they will be with you.
Awesome stuff.
Yeah.
I think that's all the time that we had. Now we absolutely love you and we support you. Totel, I think I've been lucky enough to like see the other side of you, which is the cool, calm guy who laughs a lot. And, you know, even the face on the newspapers, we like that one too because you mean business. And we thank you so much, Ngakaagae. Why don't you call yourself Advocate Ngakaagae? Why are they advocates and not just lawyers? In closing, we don't have to.
No, it's quite easy. It's a designation that you qualify to be, and you can apply to the High Court to. I mean, like I qualified to be admitted as an advocate probably the first or second year after I graduated from law school.
Awesome.
It's only that practicing as an advocate has some limitations which practicing as a lawyer does not have.
Okay.
So it's a business decision that I did not apply to be called an advocate. But if I was in South Africa, for example, where the market is huge, I would likely have applied for an advocate. I would likely have been one 2002, 2003. So it's really not much of anything. I could walk to the High Court right now and put in my application.
Yeah.
Next week, Monday, I could be an advocate.
Awesome stuff. Thank you so much, Mr.
You're welcome.
Ngakaagae. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is your first episode of the year. We got Dr. Rukaro coming through. We're talking a little bit about gout. We all had a lot of meat and alcohol over the holiday season, so we're in pain. I know some people in the place are in pain too. Guys, it's been fun. Here's Dr. Rukaro.
Of different identities. Podcast with PODI-CAST.
All right, guys, we're back again and we're getting healthy on the PODI-CAST. And as usual, back again for the first time this year, our very own rheumatologist and physician, Dr. Rutendo Yvonne Rukaro.
Yep.
I found the Yvonne. So why did you tell us in the first place?
Because I don't use that name.
Happy New Year,
Same to
Evie.
you. Happy New Year.
Good to have you back, man. How was the holidays?
Good but exhausting.
Driving and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. What do they need to get like more routes around Southern Africa? You know, like people need to start using like airplanes, man. You know, hey, we'll organize. We'll talk to the people. But we're back again, and 2025. We've talked about this topic before, but in passing. But this time around, we wanted to get straight into it because I think some people probably discovered it in January after drinking so much and having so much meat. And now their joints are hurting, and guys are just on some, maybe it might be, maybe it not be. We're talking about gout today. And I just from the jump here, doctor, you know, what exactly is gout and what causes it?
So gout is one of the inflammatory arthritis. So basically, it presents most commonly with joint pains. And what causes gout is an accumulation of a crystal in blood, which is called uric acid. Yeah. Then it crystallizes and goes to certain joints that it prefers. And because of that, it causes inflammation. Basically, your white blood cells then accumulate to try and go and fight the crystals. Yeah. And then that results in the severe joint pain associated with gout. So basically, it's a form of arthritis.
Okay. That's why we talked about it when we were talking about arthritis. And I think that's why I think today we wanted to get into it because I've suffered that type of pain. I'm being selfish again. It's the beginning of the year. You can let me be. How can someone recognize that they might have it?
So with the diagnosis of gout, it's certain things clinically that we look for. Okay. Typically, when a person has a first episode, it's called what we call podagra. So it usually affects the big toe. And the pain is usually quite severe. For those who've had it, they say it's more severe than childbirth.
Wow.
But we don't know how that comparison happened.
I don't think it could go that far.
So it usually starts early in the morning. So you find people usually start early morning when they wake up with severe pain. And it peaks within 12 to 24 hours. Then after that, whether you've had treatment or not, the natural history should be that the pain should start subsiding. Yeah. Usually within 10 to 14 days, the pain is complete. And usually it's associated with a swollen, painful joint. There can also be discoloration around the joint. It can become red. And so it's very acute pain. So that's usually in the early stages of the disease. Then later on, it tends to move to affect other joints. It can affect the foot, the ankle, the knees can be affected, but typically it doesn't affect the other joints such as the shoulders and the hips. So if those joints are affected, you need to start thinking of other causes of joint pain. And then later when it becomes chronic, it can actually start affecting things like the wrists, the smaller joints of the fingers, and that we usually call it chronic tophaceous gout. So it usually has many stages when you usually have one attack. And in between your first attack to the next attack, it can be a period of years, which we call an intercritical period, where you actually don't have any problems, but your uric acid remains high in the blood. But if you're not treated, then that intercritical period becomes shorter. So it could have been months between your attacks, and then you find now it's becoming every week or every other day, depending on your risk factors.
Okay. Yeah. Damn. It's too close to home. So who's more at risk of developing gout? Is it any type of like lifestyle things that people do, or is it like a genetic disease?
So depending on what causes the elevation of uric acid in blood, there can be some genetic predispositions, but those are rare. So that will be people who have conditions where the body is not able to eliminate the uric acid. properly because of kidney issues or other issues. But the most common cause is more common in males, because what happens as you grow up, your uric acid levels go high. So from post-puberty going up, your uric acid levels start going high naturally. But you find that more men, I'm sure you've never heard of a woman complaining of a gout attack.
I have never.
Yes.
It's always guys. They're the ones who come up with the where do you get the cocktail for the joint pain? But
Yes.
I've never heard women talk about it. Funny enough.
So the reason is, unlike many other diseases where women are more commonly affected, gout mostly affects men. And the reason is because for estrogen, when women are still having their periods, estrogen protects them because it helps the body eliminate uric acid naturally.
Okay.
So it's very rare for a woman who's still having their periods to complain of gout. So once someone is diagnosed of gout when they are still having their periods, we need to take a step back unless there are other risk factors. So it's more common in men the older you get, but also associated with it are other risk factors. So if you've got a positive family history, so if your father, uncles had it, if you had, so that's the genetic part of it, then also dietary and lifestyle things. So what you eat, we worry mostly about intake of food that are high in uric acid content when your body breaks down the food. So things like red meat. And when we talk about red meat, I know with most patients, they think it's just the meat, the whole cow. So whether you're eating the hoofs or the sirobe, it is a cow.
Someone was saying the hooves because of the joint pain. Maybe that's how you can actually, help yourself out. So the whole thing.
Yes. So
we
red
have
meat
miracle and stuff. Like, come on, what are we supposed to do, guys?
So I think that's why there's such a high prevalence of gout in Botswana, because it's a meat-consuming society.
Yeah.
So red meat, whether it's a cow or goat, pudi, those or sheep.
So you gotta stop.
Well, it depends. Remember, your diet only contributes a certain amount.
Yeah.
So that's why when you consume let's say you have had a braai or a meal that's high, the next day you're likely to have an attack, because what happens is then that swing in uric acid in your blood happens acutely. But I always say to patients, once you've been managed correctly and you've been on treatment and your uric acid levels are low, the chances of you getting flares are much less. So you can occasionally have red meat, but it shouldn't become a daily thing. Yeah. But
Almost impossible.
red meat.
But, okay, so is that the extreme? The flare-ups? Is that the only thing that as a person who might have gout should worry about? Or does it get any chronic? Like, does it get bad
Yeah.
from the flares?
And I think another risk factor we need to talk about is alcohol.
Oh, liquor.
So when it comes to alcohol, not all alcohol is equal.
As you can see, we're starting the year off
On a
fresh.
good note. So
Yeah.
beer has the highest risk factor. And it's because there's the compound called guanine in beer that's found in beer, not in other liquors.
Yeah.
And when your body breaks it down, it increases your uric acid much more. But alcohol as a whole has many other risk factors. So whether you're taking gin or wine or whiskey, the risk factor is still high depending on consumption. So patients are usually recommended to take the daily recommended amounts. For a male, it's 3 units per day, and females 2 units per day. And it's not an accumulative, because I find some patients say, I drink only on Friday, and then they take 16 beers and they've calculated. So binge drinking is the worst. So if you're going to drink, you'd rather space it out during the week. And if you're able to stop, then that's better. Then other risk factors we need to look out for are certain drugs that can also contribute. So BP medication, which you call thiazides, which are commonly prescribed to many people, can also increase your uric acid. Then rarer things such as kidney failure, hypertension, being diabetic, high cholesterol, being obese, so central obesity we spoke about with metabolic syndrome, all those things can increase your uric acid and are risk factors for gout.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're running a little bit out of our time because, like I said, it's personal. A lot of guys have this thing. And if you are diagnosed with gout, what are the treatment options that are available? Just for the flare-ups, like I did mention this cocktail that I found out about. It really works, like really quickly. It's a combination of muscle relaxers mixed with like some diaclofenac, whatever. Yeah, it helps, But last time when we talked about arthritis, you said those things are they may be detrimental to your health. What are the right ways to treat something like gout?
So the treatment of gout, we break it up into different things. So one is prevention. right? So you want to manage the risk factors in your patient, identify lifestyle, what can be corrected, diet, everything else that is for everyone. And then whether it's in an acute phase versus chronic. So in an acute phase, when a patient comes in and they're in severe pain, there are different things that we use that can treat. So depending on the size or number of joints, we can use what we call glucocorticoids or steroids. So I usually inject the joints, the knee or an ankle, even the big toe. That gives the fastest relief. We also consider using oral steroids, which are called prednisolone, the small white tablets. Those can be given for a short course as well to reduce the inflammation. Non-steroidal drugs, painkillers. So this falls in the diclofenac range, Indocid. None is more superior to the other, just depending on the risk profile. But what's important is you need to look at an individual patient and say, what are the contraindications? So the acute phase, and then other things that are non-medical, where you just basically, you can take an ice pack to cool the joint and rest the joint. So those are some of the things you can do.
Doesn't work.
Yeah. And then now once you've decided that this patient has gout and they need treatment, there's now the chronic stage where we actually need to make sure we lower the patient's uric acid. And that's more chronic. So it becomes a chronic disease. So now you're going to put the patient on what we call serum urate lowering therapy. So these are drugs that help the kidney eliminate the uric acid or reduce production of uric acid. And by doing that, when your uric acid levels become low, the risk of developing an attack becomes close to zero. But then that now requires chronic medication.
Awesome. Is it expensive?
So
because I know you focus on this type of stuff. So
Yeah.
I think we got the right person here. So yeah.
So I think I need to highlight that the gout cocktails, as much as they work, what they do, they reduce or delay diagnosis and proper treatment. Because what you're doing with the gout cocktail, you're just treating the symptoms. You haven't treated the underlying cause. So, and gout can be very detrimental. Not only does it affect your joints, it can actually lead to kidney failure, because those crystals can also cause kidney damage and kidney failure. Also, chronic use of non-steroidals when you're just using painkillers can lead to kidney failure as well. So there's a lot of things to look at when it comes to gout. And it also increases your risk of cardiovascular disease. So your risk of a stroke and a heart attack is much higher because of gout. So don't look at it only as a joint disease. There's a lot around it. So in terms of cost of drugs, allopurinol, which is the gold standard, is quite cheap and quite affordable. It's just that most patients are not put on the correct doses and are not treated to a target. So even if you're taking allopurinol, but you're on a low dose or you haven't reached the target to reduce your uric acid, it may not be effective. So it's good to see a doctor who's well-versed in treating gout. As much as we may think it's not an important disease, it actually can cause reduced quality of life in a patient. Yeah.
Can it be fully cured?
So in terms of curing, I'll just say it depends. So let's say for yourself, you've got gout, you've got risk factors, you're managed to eliminate your lifestyle causes, and if those alone are able to reduce your uric acid to a level where you prevent precipitation, then I could say to that patient, yes, consider stopping the medication. But studies have shown that even if after years of taking medication you've not had a gout attack, when you stop the medication and you haven't put other things in place, then your risk of recurrence of the attacks happens. So it's almost like treating high blood pressure, because the majority of the patients will need something on board. Not just lifestyle will work. So even if you stop drinking alcohol, you stop eating red meat, there is an element of how are your kidneys processing the uric acid. And if that's inadequate, you definitely are going to need treatment. So you need to think of gout as a chronic disease. And yeah.
Awesome stuff. Dr. Rutendo Rukwara, thank you so much for all of that information. Anyone who wants to check it out, you can always check out Kako MRI House. That's in Block 7. Yes, when you're going towards BTV, and that's where you can check it out at Rumamed Clinic. Thank you so much. And to a great 2025.
Cheers.
We'll reduce our uric acid, guys. And that, guys, is the end of the show. We'll catch you out next week. We out. Peace.
Cheers.
People of different identities.